AirBnB stock, ABNB stock, is moving higher after the latest earnings release. They had a surprise move upward, but one thing I want to point out about this, their profits, it's outside of regular business. Therefore, kind of makes you wonder where they're going to be. I've got the breakdown for future projected earnings and the breakdown for Airbnb stock, ABNB stock symbol. Let's jump in and I'll show you what I see looking at Airbnb stock. If you're joining me for the first time, thanks so much. Make sure to hit that like and follow button. What I do here, I'm an economist, and I break down the economy and show how each individual stock would perform given the direction of the economy. Here we're looking at Airbnb stock, ABNB stock symbol. And as you can see, since the earnings release, Airbnb stock has been moving much higher. Will that continue? When you look at the metrics for Airbnb, and this is the kind of company that I think could be a great company. They don't do a thing. They put together some software, they get their customer service, and then they let everybody else do all of the work. There might be some unicorn-esqueness to this. They haven't been nearly as profitable when you break down the numbers and you look at it as you would actually kind of think. In the meantime, we're seeing some kind of contraction in the economy. How big will this be? Will it affect Airbnb stock? The thing is, Airbnb is getting really expensive. So who can afford it? These tend to be the middle to upper rings of the economic ladder, therefore not necessarily, say, down below where those individuals don't go on vacation as often and probably go for bargains more so than Instagram-worthy pictures. So, given that, even though we do see some contraction, Airbnb's customer base mostly will see some decline, but not nearly as much as if there's a total contraction of the economy. And that's sort of something you got to keep in mind. I don't think that we're seeing a big contraction in the economy right now. My belief, and I did the 2024 stock market analysis previously, basically I said, we're going to see a little dip right here. Then the economy is going to kind of turn right back upward somewhat, but so will inflation. And then the Federal Reserve is going to have to get busy, real busy. And that's when it's going to hurt. But that's probably not till 2025. So in the meantime, Airbnb stock could actually move up. Let's first break down all of the revenue data, financial data. Here, quarterly revenue for Airbnb, $3.4 billion for the quarter. And as you can see, continually increasing revenues. Q3, of course, being a bigger quarter for the travel industry than the other quarters, obviously Q4 and Q1. Everybody's in school and working. 2023, looking for almost $10 billion in revenue, almost $11 billion in 2024. This is one of the things as a value investment that I'm looking for, continually increasing revenue. Now, will they actually hit that mark? Should we see some kind of contraction? Again, I'm looking for a smaller contraction that probably wouldn't affect people who travel, your Insta-worthy kind of traveler as much. We'll see how that plays out. Again, I'm looking for a smaller dip in the economy, then a move right back upward. Margins. Airbnb gross margins is 77.2%. They don't really have much cost. It's a computer system. They got customer service representatives and things like this. It's really a hands-off kind of business. And these are the kinds of business I like a lot because they don't have very much in costs. But things start to break down. Operating margins, 44.1%. This is their biggest number. And as you can see, Q3 is their bigger number. When they get those bigger dollars coming in, they're getting better sort of margins across the board. But Q1, of course, isn't exactly their best. That's why you look at an annual basis. Net margins, 128.8%. So when you're looking at your core costs, gross margins, operating margins, and then you get a bigger jump in net margins. For those of you who haven't been able to figure this out, this is real simple. They got money from some other area outside of normal business. And that's really the bottom line that you need to understand. It doesn't matter that they actually brought something in. It's not normal. It's not their normal business. So what would be normal when we move forward for earnings per share? You're looking at 663 for this quarter, but the projection kind of brings everything back into perspective. 2024, $4.36 is all they're looking for. But in 2023, expectations for the total year, $8.33. Again, income outside of normal business. What we want to focus on is the normal business. What can they do? $4.36 is what we're looking at for the future. Price to earnings ratios. This is a fairly okay price to earnings ratio. 10 times price to earnings ratio, that's Warren Buffett's sweet spot if there were high enough margins, increasing revenues, improving margins, and things of that nature. So had you bought from the Q2 numbers, you would have done okay. Here we see AirBnB stock breakdown. 143.75, it's kind of bobbling around that price. 428 was 2024 earnings per share projections for AirBnB stock. ABNB stock itself, the yield 2.977%. Take 423 divided over top of 143. This looks at everything you get over the next 4 quarters. What would be the yield based on the forward earnings at the price 143.75? Your treasury yield 4.275%, which the 10-year treasury yield, the benchmark, outperforms ABNB stock. Then you start asking the question, well, could Airbnb stock move higher based on outlying factors not factored into this kind of analysis? And I basically look at, if I bought this stock, what would I get for it? I'm looking at yield, first and foremost. Revenues are increasing somewhat. Profit margins are improving somewhat. But the economy is likely to slow down somewhat. Therefore, the 143.75 might be a little too rich. So Airbnb themselves, in an economy that could be expanding, Airbnb stock itself would expand and move higher. Right now, the price, a little too rich. Now, we might see a slowdown in the economy. If we get an economic slowdown of any kind, you're probably going to see Airbnb stock, ABNB stock ticker symbol, probably move a little bit lower, which would improve the yield. But you probably wouldn't get the 428 if we did see that contraction. So somewhere in there, you have to balance where you think profits are going to end up based on revenues, based on an economy contracting somewhat. You might be able to get, say, 120, 110, $100 for Airbnb stock. And as you can see, we did dip down to 115 not long ago, just in November. So seeing these kinds of moves lower, it's not a far cry. In fact, we might go sub 100 if the economy contracts enough. Again, while the customer base for Airbnb stock wouldn't necessarily be the ones who are impacted the most by higher interest rates, if the economy does contract, those individuals themselves may start losing their employment simply because the economy in general. So then you're looking at Airbnb stock as a potential, over a longer period of time, buy the dip, waiting for a move higher. Airbnb stock myself, I don't think so. I don't like the margins. I want to see a lot more consistency myself. I would pass on this unless I got a Airbnb stock price so low that it's like, well, you know it's going to go up. The economy is contracted. It's just a matter of everything getting worked through and moving forward from there. Then Airbnb stock would move back upward. It would have to be a pretty sweet stock price, Airbnb stock itself. And I'm talking probably sub 80, which we were just there at the beginning of the year. So that would make things really interesting. Once the economy kind of bottomed out a little bit, Airbnb stock bottomed out somewhat as well. We'll see how that plays out. Make sure to hit that like and follow button because the economy is starting to make shifts and kind of contract somewhat. I'll keep you posted on how to look at these stocks from a value investing standpoint. Hit that like and follow button. See you in the next video.